Hi, 7th graders. Today we are going to be focusing on subtracting integers. So quick review, integers are going to be whole numbers and their opposites. So we're not talking about fractions or decimals right now. We're just talking about, if you think of whole numbers, is like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then their opposites, so -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and so on that way as well. So I have some big ideas. One of the big ideas is wrong, so we're going to read through these and then try to find our mistake. So it says when you subtract a positive number, you move farther left on the number line. When you subtract a negative number, you move farther left on the number line. And subtracting a negative gives the same result as adding a positive. So if we think of our activities in class with subtracting on the number line, okay, if I was doing, let's say 3 minus 7, so I'm subtracting a positive. Right now that 7 is a positive. So if we think of the number line, here's 0, we'll say I'm at 3. So if I subtract 7 from 3, I'm going to be moving to the left 7, okay? And so when I subtract a positive number, I'm moving farther left on the number line. That is true. So when I subtract a negative number, let's say I had 2 minus -3. So I'm going to start at 2. Now, if I was just subtracting 3, I would move to the left. But because I'm subtracting -3, I'm going to move in the opposite direction, 3. So I actually end up at 5. So this is going to be my mistake. When I subtract a negative, I'm actually moving farther right on the number line. And then subtracting a negative gives the same result as adding a positive. If we look at this example we just used, 2 minus -3, I ended up with an answer of 5, which, so subtracting a negative is going to give me the same result as if I were to add a positive. So 2 plus 3 would also be 5. All right, so we have some examples here and some mistakes to fix. So -3 minus 8 is equal to -5. So if you think of starting on -3 on a number line, all right, if I'm at -3, if I'm subtracting 8, that means I'm moving 8 to the left. And so I'm actually going to end up then at -11. So instead of -5, I would get -11. Another way you can look at this problem is when we subtract, we can rewrite that as adding a number's additive inverse or opposite. So I'm still going to start with that -3, but if I add and then the opposite, if I add the opposite of 8, then I get -8. So -3 plus -8 would also give me -11. Here, if I look at this problem, -2 minus -5 is equal to -3. If I think of that on a number line, I have -2, I'm starting at -2. If it was -2 minus 5, I would move to the left. Because it's -2 minus -5, I'm actually going to move 5 to the right. So if I move 2 to the right, I'm at 0. So I'm going to end up at 3 more, and I'll end up at +3. So this should be +3. And we can also create this as an addition problem. So -2 plus, and then if I look at this entire kind of double negative here, the opposite of -5 is +5. So this problem gives me the same answer as -2 plus 5, which is also going to be 3. This example down here is just for you to kind of fill in, so give yourself, you get to kind of create a problem and then again write the steps that you use to solve in a language and in words that make sense to you, okay? So -4 minus something, You get to plug in an integer there and then go ahead and solve it and explain your steps. So we're going to look at some mild problems first. -7 minus 8. So I'm starting at the -7 because I'm subtracting 8. That means I'm going to move further to the left on the number line. Or I can also think of this as -7 plus -8. All right, so if I rewrote this as an addition problem, then that's going to give me -15. So -7 minus 8 is -15. On this next one, I'm starting at -14 on a number line. So I'm going 19 from -14 in one direction or another. If it was -14 minus 19, I would move to the left. Because it's minus -19, I'm actually going to move to the right. So this problem, I could rewrite this as -14 plus 19. And that's going to give me +5. And then this last one, 5 minus -2, I'm going to be starting at +5 on the number line, and then I'm going to end up 2 away from it in some direction. So starting at +5, if it was just subtracting 2, I would move to the left. I'm subtracting -2, so I'm going to move to the right, which means that this problem, 5 minus -2, ends up giving me the same answer as 5 plus 2, which would be 7. Our median problem here, a hiker begins in a valley at 180 feet below sea level. When the hiker reaches the highest point on the trail, he's 624 feet above sea level. What is the change in feet in elevation? So I'm actually going to model this one first, kind of on a vertical number line, and then we'll talk about how we could write it as a subtraction. So 0 is our sea level here. So I'm starting at 180 feet below sea level, so I'm going to start at -180 feet, and then when I reach my highest point, I'm going to be at 624 feet above sea level, and what we're trying to do is figure out that overall change in elevation. So how we can write this as a subtraction problem is 624, that ending point, and we can subtract or find the difference between that and our beginning point. And so 624 minus -180, really what I'm going to end up doing here is 624 plus 180 to figure out this total distance between these, which would give me 804 feet. So there's a change in 804 feet in elevation. All right, and then the spicy one, we have some subtraction and we have some addition, so we want to keep in mind the order of operations for this problem. So when you think about the order of operations, P is first, parentheses or grouping symbols. Now, one thing I want to notice or point out is that this -6 is in parentheses, but there's nothing actually happening within the parentheses. The purpose of these parentheses is just to kind of tell us that's a -6. So we have -12 minus -6 plus 14 minus 18. So -12 minus -6. So since there's nothing happening in the parentheses, we're good there. We don't have any exponents. We don't have multiplication or division. So we're moving on to addition and subtraction, but we do that from left to right. So first I'm going to solve -12 minus -6. And you could think of this a couple of different ways. You could think of having 12 negatives and subtracting 6 negatives from that. So you're still going to have 6 negatives left. You could think of this as -12 and then the minus -6. If we rewrote that as addition, -12 plus 6, that's going to give us -6. There's a couple of different ways you can view that problem. But that's just that part of the problem. Now we still have plus 14 minus 18. So again, with addition and subtraction, we work from left to right. So -6 plus 14 would give me +8. And then now I'm going to do 8 minus 18, which will give me -10. So -10 is going to be my answer there. Again, I just really want to point out that when we are subtracting a negative, that's going to give us the same answer as adding a positive. So for example, 3 plus 5 is going to give us the same answer as 3 minus negative 5. And all of these subtraction problems can also be written as addition. So negative 2 minus 7, you can think of that as negative 2 plus negative 7. Negative 4 minus negative 6 is going to be the same as negative 4 plus 6. And 8 minus 12 would give us the same answer as 8 plus negative 12. I hope this helped. We were subtracting integers. Have a wonderful day.